Hey everyone, this is Mike. I'm here with Isaac,
Yo,
and we're here to talk about some video games. More specifically, we're here to talk about a new little bit of technology that has been revealed by Google. Project Genie. Apparently, it's a new generative AI tool that can be used to create entire video games simply from prompts. Obviously, everybody has their opinions about AI. I'm kind of like 50-50 when it comes to the technology, but this new tool seems to be making a big statement by the fact that a lot of stock markets ended up crashing when this thing got revealed. Now, I know Isaac has a lot, so I'll let him talk.
yeah. So basically, what you expanded is I think Gemini 3 just got introduced as their brand new AI learning model, which honestly, ideally, you probably want it's going to be probably more focused on training robotics because the comparison of being able to train robotics to replace humans to do more labor jobs would be almost the next step in the road to. The world of the Matrix. But with this, that's also been announced. But it did, like you said, focus on as an AI game development tools, where it's able to, again, using prompts to be able to generate actual live moving game worlds that are very realistic. And with Google's power, with Google Maps and all the resources, you could see how this kind of new technology, although clearly not refined, send a little bit of shockwaves over the weekend with a lot of companies kind of hitting their lows. If you can pull up the screens for some of the companies that got hit, Nintendo got hit pretty big, going down only $15 for you, starting opening the share as we were recording. Next company that moved on, CG Project Red, got hit was $18.38 a share, and then Roblox, pretty much a big company, 65.76 share. And these are kind of just a small fraction of the companies. EA got hit, 2K, Take Two got also hit as well, although clearly not as bad. Really significant, and of course Ubisoft also kind of took a big hit as well. But Ubisoft is going through its own struggles at the current moment. So, with the kind of news like that, before I even bring in my 2 cents, I'll ask you this, Mike. With this kind of brand new information, do you feel that that gaming companies should be worried that now investors kind of now are kind of again investors have been throwing the weight to AI throughout the last couple of years right now. Should these companies be a slightly big worried that investors are now really starting to go all AI for the foreseeable future in terms of gaming, or do you think this is just simply just like a hitch in the road?
Obviously, it's a hitch because, like, as according to the article, it's not actually generating full games. It's
Correct.
just like
Mm-hmm.
60-second, like a vertical slice, like a like an interactive proof of concept, rather
Mm-hmm.
than an actually fully realized game. That's why that's mentioned in the article that the dip was temporarily because when investors saw it and thought, "Oh God, do we might need to pull out a little bit," but once people found it, oh, it's just kind of like 60-second like generative stuff that that just there just to make a little proof of concept. Then okay, well then we're gonna put our money back. Our we're gonna stop trying to like sell our stock off of that.
Yeah, I think this was a
It
bit of
was
a
just it was a
yeah.
little. Some people hit the panic button. Others who looked into it thought, okay, this isn't a big deal yet. And yeah, I really don't. I generally don't see this as a big deal. It's just 60-second slices.
Hmm.
Not it's not like once it gets to the point where it can actually develop a fully functional game that looks anywhere halfway as decent as like a double A game, then maybe. be worried, but I don't see any reason to be worried about this.
No, I think I agree with you. Like you said, this is more like a setup to show maybe game developers or, like you said, investment people an example of what can be possibly done. I It is interesting though, Bo, because you do kind of get into a world where like a lot of these AI models are learning from each other, and when it comes from where you're getting the information from, of course, there's plenty of video games out there. Probably they're learning from a lot of let's plays and um, video. Probably going onto YouTube to learn because it's Google. Google has that kind of power and access to channel all these let's plays and all these videos that have people playing video games. And you do kind of worry in terms of when people do put in the prompts, it's borrowing a lot of IPs to be able to create their examples. And if it does get to that point where artificial intelligence is able to create a fully fledged game from beginning to end, you start to worry about the copyright laws that go into it. You know, it's already a big issue now. How all these programs are basically using IPs and other people's work to be able to create these generative images. And if it gets to the point where it's going to the point where it starts generating, games, we go back to the whole power situation where, how Nintendo has been begrudgingly trying to go after, a company for the smallest of mechanics. You bring this into the forefront, it's borrowing from everything. Where does the buck stop for a lot of these companies now? Now, a lot of these companies can go after each other if using these AI models and be like, hey, you purposely, your AI model borrowed from this game that was on to us, and how do you sit down and prove that? How are you able to control these AI models to make sure that they're not doing that? You would have to go into the data banks to see what was stolen or what was not or what was learning from. And I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to the idea that, a lot of these companies are just going so head fast into this whole artificial intelligence um, bubble to the point that there seems to be no oversight. It's just see to be the race to see how fast they can nickel and dime people. And I think once again, it's just kind of a reminder that uh, this these tools are not really ready for prime time without at least some kind of oversight, especially coming from like the federal end. You know,
Mm, yep.
so but that being said, and we are kind of recording this around Monday, so the markets could, like you said, sit down and bounce back. Once everybody kind of looks at this and really saying this is not a true threat, but the fact that it is now being brought out to the table, though, it does bring a little bit of concern if you are a video game developer, especially from the AAA side of things. We've dealt with how these AAA companies have been drastically cutting people to make more way for these AI prompts to start taking care of all these mundane jobs. And it also kind of brings up another point where I was very fearful of where, shareholders and the company execs start thinking that they can be game developers and game artists, creating these kinds of works to the point that they keep pushing out, the programs and the game developers and directors, the people that you need to be able to make games. And another thing you also have to worry about if you want to make these adjustments too, you also kind of have to worry about the programming side of things too, because I can only imagine that the coding that's being generated with AI is not good. You know, it's probably messy. It's probably makes sense for that for AI because it's making the model, but for people to kind of dissect it to understand it, I could only imagine that it might be very difficult to be able to fix that code or to fix certain game mechanics based on AI's generation stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
It's people very reported a lot of flaws with AI generated coding.
Hmm.
It's it's not something that you can just, fix easily. So that's why a lot of like developers that I know that don't really like AI coding
Hmm.
because of that.
Yeah, it's a big mess. I think I remember working with Adobe actually kind of created where you can create your own website, and like I said, it's a functional website. But when you go back to look at their code, everything was just a complete mess. Like nothing made sense. You know, again, it was kind of one of the, you could argue was one of their kind of first prompt models when they released it out when I was working on it, and you really couldn't make any of the adjustments. Nothing was making any logical sense when you were working on it, though. But yeah, no, it was just kind of an interesting topic to slightly bring up because just how it affected a lot of these bigger companies. And yeah, we're gonna see if everybody makes either a bounce back or there's a little bit of panic. I think everything's gonna make a big bounce back after they, like you said, and they realize that this is more of a training tool model, and it's really not there yet to create actual real games. But here we are.
So, what do you think about this news? Do you are you interested in this new AI model? You think it's gonna be any good for game development, or do you really think that it's not really something to really be concerned about right now? If you like what we do here, please rate, comment, and subscribe. I'm Mike with Isaac. We are saying peace.